The House floats a FISA bill that does not protect the administration. The president promises a veto saying, quote, voting for this bill would make our country less safe. The head of U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, disagrees with the White House on Iraq and Iran. The president asked the defense secretary to, quote, handle it, and suddenly there's a resignation letter. Our third story in the countdown. He may be a lame duck, but every once in a while, George W. Bush still does something nefarious just to remind us all that he's still around. The latest target, the House Democrats attempt in open debate but secret session to pass an intelligence bill that protects both America and protects what it means to be an American. According to President Bush, it actually protects terrorists.
Their partisan legislation would extend protections we enjoy as Americans to foreign terrorists overseas.
For the record, the bill does not protect terrorists. But neither does it protect telecom companies with the legal repercussions of helping the American government spy on American citizens, prompting this telling response from the president.
And this litigation would be unfair, because any companies that assisted us after 9/11 were assured by our government that their cooperation was legal and necessary.
Translation, the telecom companies need protection because if what they did was illegal, then what the Bush administration did was also illegal, and if they could be prosecuted, so too could the president. To that end, it is no surprise that Bush also abhors a provision in the bill calling for more investigation into the spying.
The House bill would establish yet another commission to examine past intelligence activities. This would be a redundant and partisan exercise that would waste our intelligence officials' time and taxpayers' money. Congress should stop playing politics with the past and focus on helping us prevent terrorist attacks in the future.
Listen to his tone of voice. He's just given up, hasn't he? The Democratic congressional response to the president's proselytizing clearly delineated by the Speaker of the House a few hours later.
The president has said that our legislation will not make America safe. The president is wrong. The president is wrong. The president was wrong, and the president knows it. He knows that our bill protects the American people, and we all understand our responsibility to do that.
Joining me now to help figure out what was the president wrong about and when did he stop knowing it, our own Rachel Maddow, host of the Rachel Maddow Show on Air America Radio and also one of the sole survivors of Dan Abrams' show last night. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Keith.
And you don't have to wear any protective devices.
No, shut up.
Why don't Democrats just come out and say this sort of directly, that the president is prepared to veto a bill that makes America safer if it makes him less safer from prosecution?
At this point, they might just be waiting for him to make that argument himself. He's made so many other arguments for why the telecoms need immunity. Mm-hmm. Remember, first he said that they would stop wiretaps if they didn't have the immunity, and then they didn't stop the wiretaps. They haven't stopped, so that went out the window. Then he said they wouldn't cooperate with the government anymore, and then Bush learned that if you get a warrant, cooperation isn't really an issue.
Right.
Then he said it would bankrupt the companies, and so they said, okay, well, let's have the government assume the company's losses here. So that went up in smoke as well. The latest argument is that the companies are patriotic, and because they are patriotic, they must be thanked and not sued. That, of course, runs smack up against the fact that the telecom companies have cut off existing wiretaps when the government paid its phone bills late.
Yeah.
The Constitution and our privacy laws were not enough to stop them wiretapping, but a late phone bill is. If you hold a phone bill in higher esteem than the U.S. Constitution, you are a lot of things, but patriotic is not one of them.
So maybe this is, from the Bush administration's point of view, this is a question of its credit report. That they're worried that if they don't give them this telecom immunity, next time they're going to cut the phone service off and the wiretapping service off altogether. Maybe it's that. All right, so the president is literally equating voting for this bill. He's now just said it is voting to help terrorists. That it's absurd scaremongering. It should not even scare, to use the woman of the night, Barack Obama's 6-year-old daughter. How come it seems to work occasionally on Democrats in the House?
Well, I mean, the scaremongering it's almost unexplainable how this would be the secret dog whistle for the next 9/11 if the phone companies were not protected from being sued for previous bad behavior. Mm-hmm. The only grounds in which that makes sense, the only way that's logical is if Al-Qaeda, we believe, is made up of disgruntled telecom shareholders or something. It's an argument that's very easy to defeat. And so the Democrats ought to be able to defeat it, but they have shown willingness us to sacrifice our concrete rights and liberties for these phantoms of lost security, to paraphrase John Ashcroft, time and time again. I hope that they won't do it again, but I do not live in expectation that they'll do the right thing here.
Are they all afraid they're going to turn into America Firsters like Lindbergh or, Neville Chamberlain's, that there actually would be another attack, and then there'll be a list of the people who voted against this particular bill who'll be trotted out and marched through the streets towards stockades or something?
They might be. They might literally be afraid of that. But what you do if you're a competent political animal is that you disprove that your actions had anything to do with the reduction in safety for the country. You ought to be able to make this argument, and you ought to be able to shoot down these arguments, particularly because Bush can't settle on one for arguing for telecom immunity, and the ones that he has settled on make no sense.
About Admiral Fallon, now former head of CENTCOM, the White House did not actually say, who will rid me of this meddlesome Fallon, but they just sort of hinted. The president asked the Secretary of Defense to handle the matter. Is that kind of shadowy process meant to scare others who are currently in the Pentagon into acquiescence to whatever the military or whatever the politicians want? Or is it, in fact, are we just forgetting how often this has happened in the course of this administration to other military figures who went, excuse me, this is nuts?
Yeah, the other part of this strategy is that they're using a biplane to fly a picture of Eric Shinseki around the Pentagon to remind everybody what happens when people don't toe the line and do something that's right instead of what the president wants. I think that if Esquire in their profile of Fallon this month was right, that Fallon is the guy standing between Bush and an invasion and unprovoked attack on Iran, then this seems to be a shot across the bow to anybody else who would take a stand like that.
They should fly a biplane around the Pentagon that has Shinseki's picture on it, because
we should do that.
I mean, just like, hey, he's a patriot. Yeah. He did something for his country, and he got that history will reward him if the Bush administration will not.